Hello, everyone. Welcome to an episode of
Yakkin About Bojack.
Welcome to episode 3 of Yakkin About Bojack. Okay, so the title of episode 3 was Prickly Muffin. It came out August 22nd, 2014, with the rest of season 1. It's a Netflix original, star-studded cast. And this episode, we met 2 new actors. Christian Shaw, who's also known for acting as Louise Belcher on Bob's Burgers. And Adam Conover is another person who appears in this episode, and he's known for Adam Ruins Everything. Have you heard of that?
He has a podcast and he's on YouTube and he talks about how everything, well, not sucks, but kind of like exposes everything. So things you think are great or just like not great.
I think in some ways that's an analogy for this episode, which really exposes some bad things about the world.
Yes, it does.
Okay, before we get into our thoughts about the episode, let's do a summary.
Okay.
Child actor from Horse and Around, Sarah Lynn, stumbles back into Bojack's life. Sarah Lynn faced early success in her career, but then was discarded after the age of 30 and is spiraling. Her own issues with substance abuse and Bojack's need to atone for his own childhood, dad issues, and guilt all combine into a toxic tornado. Do you think that summarized the episode?
I think that summarized it, but I'm also confused. How old is Bojack? Because it makes him sound like he's really old if like she's like...
Well, in the 90s, he was an adult, right? So in the 90s, he was an adult, and it has been 2014 is when the show released, and I think you're supposed to assume that it is in fact 2014.
Okay.
Say he was like 20 when he got the gig.
Okay.
It's been at least 14 years since the 90s. It's been about 20-ish years. I think the show tells us that Sarah Lynn has had, they did a 12-year skip, and then they did another 12-year skip, right?
Yeah.
So it's 24 years. I think it's been maybe 20 years since the end of the show, I would say. Like maybe they went on for 4 more years from that original clip.
Okay. So he's like in his 40s, 50s. Interesting.
Yeah. And then, because how old do you think Sarah Lynn was in the show? Like I have a guess, but I don't know.
I thought she was 6 for some reason.
So 6 plus 24, that would make her 30. That would make her exactly 30. I think you got it on the dot, right? Because they're saying she was, after 24 years from that clip, she was 30.
Yes. Okay.
Right? And 6 plus 12 makes her 18. And the first flash forward where they go to her and she's like, I'm an adult now and I have sex.
Oh, that makes sense.
So 6, 18, and then you have 30. Yeah, so that tells us her age. And that also means that it has probably been 20 years and Bojack's probably in his 40s or 50s. Yeah.
Okay. I did not put that into perspective at all. Like, I guess we can't really tell because they're animals.
Sarah Lynn is an animal to you? How rude.
Okay, Sarah Lynn or the other animals, unless they have a beard or mustache or something.
Some of the animals have like graying hair.
Yes.
Yeah, but you're right. It's hard to tell, especially in, I think this is cartoon shows in general. It's really hard to depict age because that's a detail sort of in your facial features. For animation purposes, sometimes they simplify that down, so you don't always see it.
Yeah. But it's interesting to see, like, well, again, because I come from an anime background, so most main characters are, like, youths or young adults. So having someone who is, like, a 40, 50-year-old main character is interesting.
It is interesting. I think it leads to a lot of the problems they talk about on the show and things that are going to come up because we have older characters. So do you want to jump into our new characters that we met this episode? That's a pretty heavy topic, but...
Yes. The main one is the Sarah Lynn. Was there another one?
There was Sarah Lynn, but I think there's a lot to talk about with Sarah Lynn. Do you want to start with this? What were your thoughts? Maybe before we do characters, what were your thoughts overall on this episode?
So overall, it gave more information. Like, it showed us more about the show and then his interactions with the people in the show. And oh my gosh, like, Bojack was so mean to her when she was young. Like,
oh yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he got that behavior because his parents were like that.
Yes. I think it tells you more about Bojack's worldview. Like, he was harsh because I think he saw her as an actor, but he didn't take into account she was 6 because I think that's Bojack's own maturity, not really understanding. But Bojack places his worth on external people, on the outside world, on the audience and how they perceive them. And that's how he sees his worth. And he gives her that pep talk, in quotes.
Intense pep talk.
Yeah. And I think he basically transferred his own baggage of like externalizing his self-worth to Sarah Lynn.
Okay. I mean, it depends. I think that if he wasn't so serious and the music didn't get all dark, it could have just
Yes.
been like oh, like as entertainers, we want to make our audience smile, that kind of thing, which
Yeah.
I think is
But I definitely
yeah.
think not just the music, it was
Mhm.
also his tone
Yes,
and his
his
behavior.
tone.
I think
Yes.
definitely the music amplified it.
Yes, but his tone and behavior, yeah. Yeah, it was a bit much for a child.
And yeah, impressionable because we learned that Sarah Lynn didn't really have a father figure, at least. I think it's implied in the flashback.
Mhm.
The one where they're doing makeup before the weekend.
Oh, yes.
Weird. Like she dreams of doing something other than acting, but her mom seems to want her for money,
Mhm.
did some sexual acts to get her the position and role she has now. She doesn't seem to really have a father figure in her life either. So
Mhm.
she really doesn't have a healthy adult role model other than Bojack, who is a fictional dad and clearly a not great one in real life either.
Mhm.
Like, I don't think Bojack had to be a parent to her at that age. Technically, it wasn't his responsibility, but
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I guess too, it's kind of like, yeah, as you said, like he didn't have to be the parent. They were technically like at work, so like regardless of age, like he might not necessarily know about their family situation, so he
yes.
was just acting like how he would normally act,
Yeah.
which I mean, for her it just kind of sucked because this is what she's exposed to.
Yes. And I think you're right. Like with your coworkers, it's fine because there's an assumption that your coworkers are fully developed adults. And
Mhm.
so they can understand and make their own decisions. They can, to some degree, differentiate between other people's opinions and whether this should be my opinion. Like you can decide that.
Mhm.
For a child, typically like authority figures, when they tell you stuff, you can decide it too, but you definitely do interpret this as is this the rule or the way the world works, especially
Mhm.
if they're someone you admire.
Mhm.
Did you ever have that happen to you when you were a kid? Did you look up to anyone?
I think I was pretty sheltered as a kid. There wasn't really much like out there that influenced me, I guess, which I don't know. I think that there's some like there's positives in that in the sense that there can be a lot of negative influence out there. Like say a lot of people if they're younger, they're
Mm-hmm.
exposed to not great media, like
Mm-hmm.
people who and then they try to imitate those people and start doing
Yeah.
I don't know, say smoking or drugs, or things like that as a younger age because they
Yeah.
think it's cool. But at the same time, then I also missed out the influence of like say the people who have made change at a young age or who are like great leaders in their
Yeah.
community as an
And to feel like
example.
you have to kickstart your life that way.
Hmm.
I feel like I took a different outlook. I definitely don't think I had a specific role model, but teachers. I really loved authority figures.
Uh,
And I would really, if a teacher said they did something or I'd ask them about their life story and be like, I need to become like them because they're adults who are doing things with their lives. And I want to be a college professor.
you did?
No, actually, for a long time, I did want to become a professor.
Ah.
Did I not say this? I wanted to go into teaching. Did I like teachers? And then I
Ah.
wanted to get my PhD and teach. Maybe I'll do it one day. I definitely don't find research as interesting as I
Hmm.
find being a lecturer.
But now with all the things online, you can make your own courses like on Skillshare. And if we were sponsored by Skillshare, we will put in an ad, but we're not. So
Melina already asking for the sponsors, episode 3. But Skillshare, if you hear us, Melina's right. So we're talking about Sarah Lynn's self-destructive nature in pursuit of her audience. What did you think of the way she manipulated Bojack?
yeah. Well, first of all, the whole scene where they met in the mall, where it's a breakup,
Oh,
and
right. Yes. That's when I wrote the line of self-destructive in pursuit to keep her audience. That's when I wrote that line.
okay, I was just like, this is a bit much.
Understatement of the year,
Yeah,
Melina.
so I don't know if she planned that to happen or just so happened to be that he okay no like what if she just bled
I
out and
don't
then no
think
one
she
helped
planned
her
it.
like what she would have just died.
She just stabbed. I think that was the part where it's supposed to be comedic. She just stabbed herself with the bayonet. Just stab because she will do
But
anything to
what
keep
if
her audience.
she just no one helped her?
They didn't help her. She
Why?
freaking
Yeah,
duct taped it.
exactly.
That is not help. No one took her. I love how in the cutscene of Bojack telling Diane, He's like, so then I took her to Promises for a 28-day rehab. And I was like, cool. Then they cut to it and she's still bleeding in the car while he took her to rehab. They didn't take her to the hospital first. Nah. First, while bleeding out, take her to rehab. I don't know.
That is true.
Do you think that Sarah Lynn manipulates Bojack more, though, than he deserves?
Well, what do you mean by deserved?
Well, to some degree, I felt like Bojack was asking to be manipulated. He wanted to use Sarah Lynn, and he outright says this to Diane, right? He like outright says this to Diane when he says, no, why would you think I'm doing this? And he says, do you think I'm trying to solve this sick dad fantasy, resolve some deep guilt for a past neglect, or fix his own childhood? And then he says that's he's not trying to do all three at the same time, and then immediately undercuts it by calling Sarah Lynn his sweet baby, as if she's literally a child, and then runs out of the room, which clearly I think he's trying to fix his past by, you know, taking in Sarah Lynn, but he's doing a bad job of it. So to some degree, I feel like, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't say someone deserves
I don't know.
it,
I feel
but
that she would have done it regardless of who it was. Like, it just so happened to be that he's the one who happened to
Mhm.
pick her up while she was bleeding to death. But if it was anyone else, I feel that she would have done the
Yes.
same thing, like done the whole like sob story about, oh, I can't go home kind of thing. Can I stay here?
Yeah. It definitely seems like something she has learned
Hmm.
to do, not just to Bojack. It brings up to the point that I want to get into of so many notes on Diane's whole thing. But infantilization, Diane says that. And because Sarah Lynn was
Hmm.
famous when she was 6, right? I feel like she was rewarded
Hmm.
for acting like a child. Like, you know, America, or like Bojack Horseman America, loved her for being a child. And so she knows if she does childlike behavior, that's what the world wants from her, one, to some degree, and that's also what she gets
Hmm.
rewarded for, and has created this positive feedback. Obviously, this is the term you said before, couch
Yes,
psychologist.
armchair, because we're very
Right?
posh and
Armchair.
sophisticated.
And yet I am standing right now. Armchair psychologist.
Hmm. I don't know if she was necessarily acting like an infant either, because she did go through that phase of say of how she was being an adult and like sexy. So I assume during those 18, whatever, 20 years, she had this persona of like being a, I don't know, sexy girl, whatever, that got her what she wanted. I don't think her behavior was necessarily
Hmm.
a kid's behavior. I just think it was just someone who was being, that just guilt trips people. That's just a guilt tripping kind of behavior that anyone can do, even an adult. Like when someone tells someone like, "Oh my gosh, I'm
True.
gonna kill myself if you break up with me," kind of thing.
Yes. I argue that that behavior can still exist with the sexy girl behavior, and in fact is encouraged by our society. Hot take. So, in terms of how women are sexualized, they're sexualized, one, from a very young age, and often sexualization of women happens with baby-like or childlike features. In anime, the schoolgirl fantasy. They even like certain types of lingerie that's very, baby doll style. The term baby being referred to as a significant other in some ways is you applying in sort of conflating those two terms. And it happens a lot in our society, and I dislike it. And it happens almost exclusively with women. It doesn't happen as much with
Hmm.
men, right? And that has to do a lot with our gender inequality in our society, and sort of this as Diane mentions, the patriarchy. And is there even a way for a woman to be sexually liberated and sex positive in this world, because she's still kind of treated and rewarded for that infantile behavior? And you can still be sexy, but you're still going to be expected. Like there's this sort of nuanced
Hmm.
situation. I don't know if you feel this way,
My
but
first thought when I heard this was like, I thought many people were very against pedophiles. So why would you? But then if you're infantilizing or sexiness or sexualizing infant, I don't know.
it's a little, I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah,
it's a little pedophilic. And I feel like our society is kind of like that, and it disturbs me a little
interesting.
bit. It's not right. But we do it too much. We make young women sexy way too young. And I feel like that really, it hits that boundary, which I like the fact that Sarah Lynn was 18 when she had her sort of I'm a woman, I'm sexy, whereas Sextina Aquafina
From the Crazy Rich Asians. No.
Yeah, Aquafina is a
Oh,
real artist, but in the show there is a
yes.
fake dolphin artist that they ask.
Oh,
Do you remember?
yes.
Her
Oh,
name is
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Sextina
yeah.
Aquafina, but it's not spelled the same way as the Crazy Rich Asians, and it's not meant to be her.
Oh.
Yeah, but the whole point was
Oh,
she's the
okay.
young hip thing, and she's saying that,
Yeah.
Sarah Lynn's old news. Sextina Aquafina is age 14 in season 1.
Oh, that's young.
That's young, but a lot of female celebrities and artists were very young when they get sexualized.
Mm.
They're under the age of 18. So it happens in connection. And when Sarah Lynn did her whole I'm 18, I can have sex, it reminded me of a lot of Disney artists. Like even Britney Spears was originally a Disney artist. We haven't even touched on Britney Spears, but I feel like Sarah Lynn's experience is very similar to what happened to Britney Spears. They were Disney kids. They hit a certain age to get their career to work. It's like women can only be seen as child, sex object, and then they don't exist anymore. I'm very proud of women like Madonna who are able to re-evolve themselves and their career is not limited to their age. A lot of ways it is. Sarah Lynn has gone through that sort of thing where she was either a child or she had to be a sex object. And those are the only two ways she could market herself and be in the world zeitgeist, be liked by her audience. That's a very containing box. And I think that's led to a lot of these unhealthy behaviors.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Although I was a bit confused. Like, so after, is she... So because I know that there was a whole, like, she doesn't have an agent anymore. So she's, like,
Yeah.
out of entertainment? Because later in the episode, she went back in. She was like, oh, I got another agent. So I was like...
I think she
I'm
probably
very
fired
confused.
her agent and she was in between agents, maybe.
Interesting. Which is not important.
But no, I think she was in between agents, which is why, Princess Carolyn. I loved Princess Carolyn. Can we just talk about her for a second? Did you like Princess
Sure.
Carolyn this episode? Melina, tell me your thoughts. Yes.
She was hilarious.
Also smart.
Yes.
Genius. She was like, Sarah Lynn, great person to get, but she really wanted Andrew Garfield. When she said,
Yes.
Great, phase 1 of the plan is complete. Phase 2, release to the
Yes.
press that Vanessa Gecko is meeting with Andrew Garfield's ex. And then set up a meeting with me and Andrew Garfield. Princess Carolyn was so smart.
Oh, yes. Well, she was definitely opportunistic. Like, when she heard right away that Sarah Lynn was was agent free, she just went in afterwards.
Yeah, so what did you think of Todd?
Todd. He was freaking out. He seemed like because in most of the other episodes, he seemed like the hipster kind of guy.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned that before. But now he seemed like the voice of reason.
He was the voice of reason. Him and Diane were the voice of reason in this, and I love Todd, as always. Despite the fact that Todd is kind of crazy, he's almost always the wisest, I feel. So keep an eye on Todd.
Okay. Because he's definitely like when I saw him now, I was just like, this is so different from before the previous episodes where he was getting involved with like the gangs and like getting scammed by
true.
fake dating phone people.
Yeah, I feel like he lives his life and he has fun. He makes opportunities for himself. He gets into trouble, but he lives.
That's
Todd
true.
lives.
But he has boundaries such as don't have crazy house parties and
don't break down someone's wall
on his blankets.
What did you think about the fact that Bojack didn't let Todd sleep in the guest bedroom?
That was sad.
I know, it's so sad. They treat Todd like dirt. But I died laughing anyways. It was hilarious. Did you catch any weird animal bits this episode?
I mean, there were a lot of animals at the parties, and then there were the two animal reporters.
Did you catch anything weird about them?
They wore clothes, but that's normal in this
They
show.
flew, Melina. Did you see them fly?
I saw them fly. That's normal for a bird.
Is it normal for bird people to fly? I don't know. I freaked out. I was like, why do they even need planes if all the bird people can fly?
For the non-bird people.
That's weird, man. Not to mention, in the beginning, they talk about having bird feeders.
Yes.
I'm like, wait, do all the birds also get free food? I don't understand this.
Maybe the bird feeders are for the non-sentient birds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I think we've gone through most of the actual plot of the show just by talking about the characters this episode. Do you want to get to Diane's speech? Do you remember Diane's speech?
She talked. Well, which speech? There were a few speeches I
Really? Oh,
feel
what were
that
the
she
other
had.
speeches? I only thought about one.
Well, I don't know if it was considered a speech, but him, I forget which one. I think Bojack asked her about Sarah Lynn, and that's when she went into a tirade.
Yeah.
And then he just went like, "Oh no, I just meant like in terms of like right now." And then that's when she's like, "Oh, okay. Like you mean like in terms of like what you're doing, letting
Yes.
her have this party kind of thing." There's that, and then at the end, there's also like a talk between Todd and Diane and Bojack, where it's kind of like, "You're gotta get things under control, Bojack.
Yeah.
Things are going a little crazy." And also at the end, where Bojack and her have a bit of a talk, where he's kind of did I screw up kind of thing, and she's like, "Well, I mean, da da da," and then he's like, "Oh yeah, no, it's society.
Oh,
It's
that
like we're
was
all products
also
of
a
society kind
speech.
of thing."
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Now I see all the different ones. I'm talking about specifically her first one, which is the one I did like a bit of a deep dive
Okay,
into, for sure.
okay,
Because it
it
was
was a
a
lot of
lot. So I
words.
took notes, right? And
Okay, I had a feeling I had a feeling that you were gonna take notes on this. When I first heard it, I was just like, "Okay, there's a lot going on," but I feel like Aditi will really like
yeah.
this.
So I loved it, as you know. And I like how
Yes.
Diane mentions, like, what do you think about her? Like, she loves her early work because she satirizes youth culture's obsession with sex. And it actually made me
Mm.
think because a lot of people say that, and there's some artists who do it intentionally and some artists who don't do it intentionally. And it's about really third wave feminism. I actually looked up third wave feminism because I wanted to make sure what it was. Third wave feminism
Okay.
started in the 90s. I looked it up. This from the
Mm.
Wikipedia article. And it is about feminism from second wave. We got a little bit more equality, but it talks about
Mm.
intersectionality and sex positivity. And it talks about getting consciousness. So a lot of women are taking the items we've gotten from second wave feminism for granted. So it's about raising consciousness and what is really good for women. And I think
Okay.
Diane
Okay.
also means, like, I guess the sex positivity is third wave, but what really we're in the middle of is fourth wave feminism, began around 2012. And I think this is the
Mm.
one you probably are most familiar with, Melina. It's the one that's empowerment about women, intersectionality of women, as well as social and marginalized groups, like those problems that come together,
Mm.
equal pay, equal opportunities, and about both women and men overcoming gender norms. Like, it's really about gender equality and coming
Mhm.
to that balance, because we're not going to get to full equality unless we do that. And I think that Diane's whole bit about how can a woman reclaim her sexuality in a patriarchal society that automatically sees her as an
Mm.
object, and how can that really exist in third wave feminism, is how fourth wave feminism really starts, right? It's like, how do we overcome these gender norms? How do we make it more
Mm.
equal? And she talks about, does that mean then if a woman's really reclaiming her sexuality, is that just a lie to cater to the male gaze and to get her audience? That's something that Diane's thinking about. And I was like, I totally see that. But then by saying this, does that mean
Mm.
Sarah Lynn is just a puppet of the industry? Like, she just works for agents. And that's like also dismissing her own agency. And by doing so, it just feeds into the infantilization of women as a byproduct in the society
Mm.
we live in. So I thought that was really great. I looked up specifically two different aspects that I thought about with this. One is infantilization, we talked about earlier, and the second is ageism. Highly recommend everyone looking up this article. It's called Women's Double Dose of Discrimination, Gender, and Ageism. It's on the Forbes site. We can put a
Mm.
link in the description. And it talks about how women face more stigma as they get older.
Mm.
And a lot of the time it's because attractiveness and our physical appearance is much more valued for women than it is for men,
Mm.
especially in Hollywood, right? Like when
Mm.
they talk about in with the new, out with the old. At 30, Sarah Lynn is like, her
Mhm.
career is declining, whereas Andrew Garfield is around the same age as her, but his career is taking off, as
Mhm.
according to the show.
Mhm.
And they talk about how for women, the moment you start showing signs of aging, you are going to face ageism,
Mhm.
whereas when you're young, you face a lot more
Mhm.
sexism. And so it's like a double-ended sword.
Mhm.
And she has a line, she being the author of this article, which really spoke to me. And it says, as usual, it will take women to foment change. Ageism is a human issue. Ageism is a family issue. Ageism is a financial issue. Ageism is a political issue. Ageism is your issue. Ageism is our issue. And it's not that only
Mhm.
women face it, but women do face it with more difficulty, and it hits them harder. And I think that the fact that Sarah Lynn was quote unquote discarded at 30, and Bojack
Mhm.
is feeling he's in sort of the same place in his career and his life, but he is, as we
Mhm.
mentioned in the beginning, like 50.
Yeah.
Right? She got the brunt of that 20 years earlier, but obviously she was a little bit more successful. She did other shit with her life. She did a
She did
lot
a
because she was
lot.
sort of forced to work early, but yes.
But yeah, I definitely heard about the age thing, especially like even in like non-entertainment industries, like where it's like
Yes.
when you're closer to like your 30s and such, like it's like, are you gonna be bearing a child? Will you be going on maternity
Yes.
leave? Should we be hiring you because you'll be going on maternal leave?
Yes. If you're a married woman also, there's stigma when you are looking for a job based on how recently you've been married, because they aren't allowed to ask, I think, at least in Canada, whether or not you're going to be pregnant anytime soon, but a lot of companies are suspicious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I know that like a few of my male acquaintances, like they had said that they want to make themselves look older because they'll be more, I guess, seen as legitimate, which is like the opposite of what we were saying, like women, which is like
Yes.
want to look
Yes.
younger kind of thing.
Gray hair on a woman means she's old and sometimes not good at her job. Gray hair on a man means that he's distinguished. In the same way, glasses on a man make him distinguished, but glasses on a woman are typically a negative quality.
In my notes, I mean, so one thing I didn't really understand is why Bojack and Sarah Lynn kept making out and things like everywhere, not all the time, but like a number
Yes.
of times later on. It's like they were arguing, and then he was trying to set boundaries and stuff, and then she was being argumentative back, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, like I'm not your dad or whatever," and then they start doing it, and I'm like, "Why?"
I think it's because they're both toxic, right? I think it's their toxicity, and both of them don't really know how to connect and actually have difficult conversations. The only way they know how to deal with anything is sex. And the same reason that Bojack slept with the person who insulted him at the bar last time. Sarah Lynn also has either been, she gets away with things by whining. She was treated as a sexual object. That's sort of just like her two ways of navigating stuff. I think it's just both of their coping methods involve sex, which is not great.
Okay.
Which is why both Diane and Todd are like, this is unhealthy for both of you. I also think Bojack's taking advantage of her a little bit because she is having a severe substance abuse problem and an addiction problem. And Bojack has its own issues, but I definitely think that, that's why they say he's taking advantage of her in the end.
Oh, like they're kind of like codependent?
Yeah, I think that's actually maybe the best word for that.
Okay. I was just like, I'm pretty sure people in real life don't argue like that. I could be mistaken. Maybe people do make out after arguments.
I feel like in a lot of romance movies, angry sex is a thing that happens, Melina. Angry sex is a thing that happens a lot in romance movies, and that's all I can really say and comment on at this time.
Interesting. Okay. Got to see Mr. Peanut Butter.
Yeah, what did you think about the Mr. Peanut Butter TV award situation?
His buddy or whatever got him a bunch of awards. That was the thing. I was just like, you're just buying all these awards. I'm like, why? Like, are you gonna sell it off? Are you just trying to pretend you have a lot of awards?
Definitely the latter, but it's kind of like, buddy, that's sad. And you're like legitimately famous. That's sad.
I mean, maybe he likes shiny
dogs
things.
Like shiny things? I thought that was like a bird thing. Dogs just like having fun, playing, fetch, sticks. It seems like I'm not a dog person, but I like dogs. But yeah, I didn't think it was exclusively shiny things. You can get a dog to like anything. You just gotta be like, oh, you see it? Do you see it? Do you want it? Do you want it? And then they're just in. They're in. You just gotta be hyped. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but that was cute. I just brought up Mr. Peanut Butter.
Is he your favorite character, Melina?
After our last episode, I'm starting to no, I wouldn't say he's my favorite, but it's like I feel that you really liked him, and it was rubbing off on me.
I really like Todd, and you seem to not care about Todd at all.
I mean, he's okay. He's like a completely different person in this episode. Yeah. I'm just like, who are you? Not in a bad way, but I'm just like, what are you gonna be in the next episode? Like, are you gonna be a monk or something in the next episode? Are you gonna be like a mafia member? You know what? I feel like if the show's still running, you're spitballing some great ideas. You don't know, but it could actually also happen. Don't rule it out. You know. Who is your favorite character, though? Favorite character? I mean, I'm kind of impartial to all of them. Yeah. Just because I feel that there's still, so far, like, we just see mostly one dimension of each of them. Well,
Yes.
actually, I'm not gonna say dimension because sometimes some people have like great one dimension.
They're all technically two-dimension. But
So far, I'm pretty impartial to all of them. Like they're just people, I guess. There's not really one where I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to go read fan fiction about this character.
Oh, that's
I
your
want to
bar?
go
I
read the
see.
wiki.
I like Princess Carolyn and Diane, but I've also seen more seasons, so we'll see.
Okay.
Do you think
Okay.
Bojack is a good person, Melina?
I mean, so far I still think
Really?
it's neutral.
Even after him and Sarah
Yeah.
Lynn basically slept together multiple times this episode, and you thought it was iffy.
Yeah, like, well, yeah, like, so I was thinking more about the question of, because we're saying whether he's good or
Yes.
bad, correct? So, like, to me, it's kind of hard to say because it's kind of like, I feel like good and bad are
Subjective?
very, not just subjective, but they're also like very, like, you can't, I feel like a
Yes.
person can be both at the same time because it's like, they've done a lot of things. It's sort of like, how many things does a person need to do to be good
Mhm.
versus bad? And then it's like, does that overwrite everything
Yeah.
else they've done, kind of thing?
It's a more nuanced look. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel that it's difficult to say. Like, in this sense, I feel that he didn't, like, they slept together and like,
It was both consensual,
but
I guess, with the quote unquote. They're both codependent to some reason. It didn't seem, great for their health.
yeah,
It's not.
yeah. I mean, it didn't seem healthy, but I don't necessarily like if say he went around taking advantage of
Yeah.
thousands of people, that might make it more
Mhm.
like questionable. But right now it's just one situation, so it's hard to say. But so far, I still think it's like it's
Yeah.
still an isolated situation. So
Okay.
I don't know.
Before we go to takeaways, what do you think is going to happen next?
Okay, so I know at the very end the birds, the reporters like took pictures of them doing it, and then they flew off. So I'm guessing that's gonna be leaked to the tabloids, and then there's gonna be a scandal or something that's on the news, and then Princess Carolyn is gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, why are you on the news
Yeah.
about this now?" Yeah, it's gonna be in the tabloids. I'm sure there's gonna be
Yes.
more characters that's gonna appear, and then Bojack. I feel that Bojack's gonna face a lot of issues, like a lot of
Mhm.
like people coming after him. I also feel like he's also gonna be very defensive and being like, "Oh my gosh, why is the
Yeah.
world like trying to turn on me or something like that?" I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
But we'll see.
I think your guess is interesting. I won't tell you what happens, but it's interesting. Did you have any takeaways?
Let's see, takeaways. I guess generally, don't stab yourself at a mall.
That's a good
I
one.
hope that
Don't
someone
stab yourself
will.
at a mall. They talk a lot about blurring the lines between TV and reality, and Bojack does that a lot, even in the show with the segment. So I think that is.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
right. That section, I was wondering if he was that when I saw that, I was wondering if he was trying to kind of relive his like days like back
Yes.
then. Like, oh, he was happy back then. He was on a
Yes.
show, blah blah blah, and then he was just trying to relive that because he's not happy
Yeah.
with what he's
I
at
totally
now.
agree. And I also think that it's the takeaway for me was that what you see on TV and how TV is depicted is really important to know that that is not real life. And drawing the line between what we see even on social media, if we drag that out to our lives as non-celebrities, even what we see on social media, it is not a reflection on real life.
TV, movies, yeah, definitely social media.
Mhm.
Like, especially when there's so many people who are depressed because they see other people around them and they think they're so successful, like they're getting married or they're going on
Yeah, it leads to a
vacations or they
huge
brought 1,000
comparison.
Gucci
Yeah, a
bags.
lot of anxiety, social anxiety about your life, comparing yourselves.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But no, we're all different people. We all just gotta chug along. We got our own individual pasts, individual personalities, different people we met with. So it's like we're all gonna be at different places, but we just gotta do what we gotta
Yep.
do.
And we'll find out what happens when Bojack faces these problems. I don't know, he's already facing these problems. We'll find out what happens with the birds next episode.
Yes. Yes. I am looking forward to it. And you should. Everyone who's listening should also look forward to it if they haven't already watched this 4 years ago.
I think it's been more than 4 years, Melina. Spoiler alert. Yakkin About Bojack is produced, recorded, and edited by Melina and Aditi. Music is by Podcast Co's royalty-free album Keep Calm and Podcast, the song One Fine Day. All thoughts in this podcast are personal opinions. If you or someone you know is experiencing issues with addiction, substance abuse, or any of the topics mentioned in this episode, please know there is hope and seek professional help.